Great. So this is quite an interesting session, which I would want to use the first 30 minutes to show you how to compute cash flow and NPV computations, net present value computations. So here they have given us profit before depreciation and tax of 10. They've given us depreciation over how much here, somebody? 6. And then they have given us tax of 30%. So then how do we get cash flow? So ladies and gentlemen, straight away, I will start by calculating my cash flow like this. I'll use the traditional method. The traditional method here, solution, the traditional method is the one of knocking down expenses. So we start with the profit before depreciation and tax of 10. Then we come under less depreciation, because for us, depreciation is normally tax allowable. Depreciation is normally tax allowable. So come and less depreciation of 6 like that, which will end up giving us how much, somebody there, which will end up giving us a 4. So I would want to baptize this figure. Which name do I give this? Which name do I give to this 4? I would want to baptize it. Which name do I give to this 4? I would want to baptize this figure. Which name do I give it? Which name do I give? Profit before tax. Thank you very much. Because now I've already adjusted for depreciation. So it's profit before tax. Thank you, Maureen. So once I get profit before tax, I need to share this with the taxman. So I'll come under less tax at 30%. So what is 30% of 4? Can somebody help me out there? What is 30% of 4? What is 30% of 4? What is 1.2? Thank you very much. So 1.2 you subtract. So 4 minus 1.2 will end up giving me what figure? 4 minus 1.2 will end up giving me 2.8. Thank you very much. 2.8. Thank you very much. Now remember, this will be my profits after tax. This will be what we call the part. The profit after who? After taxation. Once I get the profit after taxation, in finance, we don't discount profits. In finance, we normally discount cash flows. All right? So once I get part and I'm interested in getting cash flow, I'll need to come and add back depreciation. So come here and add back depreciation. Depreciation of how much? Of 6. That is how somebody was able to get 8.8, which is the cash flow, which is the cash flow, which is the cash flow per annum, which is the cash flow per annum, which is the cash flow per annum. I've used this word cash flow severally. Actually, the other day I was just thinking, if I was to get a boy, a son, right? I would call this son what here? Cash flow, because I normally speak about this cash flow quite a lot. Here, when I'm teaching at my workplace, you normally tell businesses that cash flow is the king. Very many people don't know that you need to have a cash flow barometer in your car dashboard. In your business dashboard, there must be a cash flow barometer, because cash flow is the king, not profit. It could be profitable, but you end up being wound because of what here? Because of a poor status in terms of what cash flow. Now, method 2. Method 2, ladies and gentlemen, method 2 is a serious one. Method 2 is a serious one. I'm so sure there must be some students here who know how to calculate cash flow, how to get cash flow. They'll come and tell you straight away you can go ahead and deduct tax from your profit before depreciation and tax. You deduct your tax like that. And then if you deduct your tax like that, then you'll have to come and remember that this depreciation will have to give you a shelter. So you come and add a depreciation tax shield. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, what I've done, I've come and taken here the profit before depreciation and tax of 10, all right? Multiplied by 1 minus tax, which is 0.7. Hado jona nimetoa 0.7 wapi? Hujaona. Haujaona nimetoa 0.7 wapi? Hujaona. Ujaona nimetoa 0.7 wapi? Umeona kweli mali nimetoa 0.7? Haujaona. It's because my tax is what is 30%. 30% is the same as 0.7 or 0.3. 0.3. So then when I say 1 minus 0.3, I'll end up getting 0.7. Thank you very much. Plus the depreciation now itself. What was the depreciation amount? It was 6. This depreciation, I'm not multiplying it with 0.7. I'm multiplying it with the rate of tax, which is 0.3. I'm multiplying this with the rate of tax, which is 0.3. So could you kindly give me this figure? What will be your cash flow per annum? What will be your cash flow per annum? Kindly, what will be our cash flow per annum? What will be our... So somebody is telling me it is 8.8. Thank you very much. It is 8.8, like that. Are you seeing we are getting the same figures? Are you seeing ourselves getting the same figures? Are you seeing ourselves getting the same figures? Are you seeing ourselves getting the same figures? Yes. Great, great, great. Now from there, mention there exercise number 2. Exercise number 2. Exercise number 2. Exercise number 2 is an interesting one. They have given us profit before depreciation and tax of 10. They have given us depreciation of 6, but this time around they're telling us that tax is 0. Tax is 0. So then, ladies and gentlemen, they would want us to go ahead and give them cash flow. They would want us to go ahead and give them cash flow. Is there somebody who will be able to give me this cash flow quite first? Is there somebody who will be able to give me this cash flow quite first? Is there somebody who will be able to give me this cash flow quite first? Using the longer approach. By the way, for me here, because of some concept that they have brought in section 5, the one of tax being paid in arrears, I would prefer always the longer method. I was one of those guys who was always running away from the longer method, but now I've known that the longer method is the one that works in all situations. The shorter one, there are areas where the shorter one can never work. So they're telling me it is 10 because these students have known something very important, that when tax equals 0, depreciation is irrelevant. And therefore, cash flow will be equal to profit before depreciation and what here? Tax. When tax is not provided, I will never dare calculate depreciation. No tax, no depreciation. That reminds me some movie we used to watch when we were very young. No retreat, no surrender. No retreat, no surrender. No tax, no depreciation. And if I was to be given a chance of testing you, if I was to be given those days when they used to give me a chance to test, nowadays I'm an old man. Old men are never loved by these systems. If I was to be given a chance of testing you, what I'll do for 5 marks, I'll give you profits before depreciation and tax, like 3 of them. I'll give you the initial cost of the machine. I'll give you the scrap value. And then I'll tell you this project has a useful life of, say, 10 years. Give you the percentage per year of depreciation, right? And then tell you that the policy is reducing balance. So you start reducing your asset every year, calculating depreciation for every year, reducing every year. And then later on, I'll be able to tell you that the tax for this organization is 0. And then you now get students, so of course, who don't know a lot of finance, without even knowing that concept, no tax, they'll start computing depreciation. And then I'll give them so many years. The moment I'll start this, I can even give them 20 years. Because I know there must be somebody in that room who will walk through that journey of getting depreciation every year for 20 years if it's reducing balance. Then they do that for 40 minutes. And then after 40 minutes, they'll come and call me Mwalimu. They normally call me the man from Maragua. Man from Maragua, you taught us very well. This time round, it'll be like this. When results come out, and then they start saying that, you know what, Mwalimu, we are bewitched. No, there are principles that you have not known of finance. No tax, no depreciation. No tax, no depreciation. That is something that is very important that you guys must keep on singing as if it's a chorus. As if it's a chorus. Unajua ukienda kwa any song, upate kuna song inaimbwa na iko na chorus. Na ushinde kushika chorus, hata kama ni mzee kama mimi, uko na shida. Kama kuna siku nilipanda matatu, right? Wakaanza kuimba hivyo, siku nasikia, lakini ikafika mahali nasema atiweka mikono juu, weka shida chini. So sijui nilikuwa na shida mingi, nikaanza paka leo kukumbuka hiyo kitu. Hiyo ni chorus. So upper chorus, if there is no tax, there is no depreciation. Listen and listen to me very well. Somebody may have decided in this case here to come and use the longer approach. And of course, spoken about profit before depreciation and tax of 10. Then they came here and subtracted depreciation of 6. They got 4 there. So we call this profit before tax. And then come straight away and less tax. Tax we've said it's 0. When subtracting, of course, we'll get 4. This is what we call the famous part. When I get part, to get my cash flow, I'll simply come and say add depreciation over how much? 6. So that will give me 10. But now the question is, fine, this is your cash flow, but why walk all the journey and yet somebody who had claimed no tax, no depreciation, no tax, no much computations, no tax, no much computations, whatever profit that I have there suffices. Whatever profit I have there becomes my cash flow, So is there somebody who has been able to pick this concept nicely? Is there somebody who has not, or rather, is there somebody who has gotten this concept nicely? I go to something different. Yes, thank you very much. Thank you very much. So please remember our chorus. Remember our chorus. Kuna chorus says, hata mimi nikienda kanisa wanaenda kanisa, nyimbo mingi sana huwa sijui. Sababu sana mimi si ule ardent kama my family. Lakini chorus, mimi najua sana chorus. Chorus ikifika mahali pa chorus, nasema Mungu ninyunyuzie maji. Hiyo mimi najua sana chorus. Chorus hapo naimba kabisa. Chorus. Hata unajua no tax, no depreciation. Very, very important, ladies and gentlemen. Exercise number 3. Exercise number 3. Exercise number 3. We are given profit before depreciation and tax of 10. Then they are giving us depreciation of 15. Then they are giving us tax of 30%. And then we are required to calculate cash flow. And now, before you start even doing this, ladies and gentlemen, this subject is a very serious subject. And it favors those students who are normally happy. Ikiwa ni mwanafunzi wa kasirika, hii subject haitaki makasiriko. Angalia. Anytime you come for advanced FM class, you can either decide to wear this face or this face. Which face looks like an AFM face? Which face in this case here looks like it can pass AFM? So one, yes. So always you must smile. Always, regardless of how tired you are, regardless of how mountainous you're looking at your tomorrow will be. You know, there are people here who on Friday never balance things at their workplace. So now they're wondering, how will I do it tomorrow? It doesn't matter. Always, ladies and gentlemen, a wide smile will solve very many issues. So it's a smile, and always be open. Always be discussing with us. If you haven't understood something, ladies and gentlemen, simply write there, repeat, and I will be able to repeat severally. Galaxy, man, I can see you're putting up your hand, but unfortunately, you know, you guys are muted. I would really prefer if you could ask your question through typing. Ingosi Robert, is also raising, I don't know whether I unmute them. Problem now, if I try unmuting them, there are those students who really make a lot of noise to us here because their backgrounds are quite messy. How I wish, Robert, Galaxy, you guys could simply put down, I'm so sure that these guys would want to give us an answer. Now, also, there are those students who will get used to some choruses without even now putting them into some reasoning. Like, you know, you get somebody telling you that the cash flow here is 10. When you ask them, why is it 10? Then they'll tell you that no tax, no depreciation. No tax, depreciation is irrelevant. What is that 30%? Is that not tax really? Is that not taxation? Is that not taxation? So there we have tax. There we have tax. There we have tax. Thank you very much. So they're saying it's 8.5. Others are saying it's 11.5. Who is telling me the truth now? Who is telling me the truth now? Loss is never taxable. Good arguments there. Loss is never taxable. Good arguments over there. Good arguments over there. Ladies and gentlemen, listen and listen to me very well. Listen and listen to me very well. Listen and listen to me very well. In finance, even if it's a loss, we must apply the percentage. So solution. So we have our profit before depreciation and tax of 10 will come under less depreciation here of 15. And I'm getting, in this case here, -5 to be the profit before who? The profit before tax. So then what you're supposed to do is to come under less tax. Always in finance, you must always less tax regardless of whether it's a negative or a positive. You must always subtract tax. So the tax that we have here is 30% of -1.5 of -5, which will give me -1.5. And then I'll remember that I'm taking this profit minus this taxation. So it is -5 minus 1.5. Please use your calculator and give me the answer. It is -5. Then there is this minus in the formula because of the less. And then the value that you're subtracting itself is -1.5. Purity is getting -6.5, which I really doubt. Purity, have you been able to capture this nicely in your calculator? -5, minus of the less, and then this figure itself is -1.5. Don't use your head. Use your machine. Don't use your head to calculate. Use your machine. Yeah, it is -3.5. It is -3. Now, ladies and gentlemen, once I get this figure, I'll have to call it the famous part. This is the famous part. This is the famous part. So once I have my famous part, what do? I will come here and add depreciation. Add back depreciation. Add back depreciation of how much? Add back depreciation of 15. Remember the depreciation amount was 15. So could you kindly add the two? So -3.5 plus 15. You're adding back depreciation. So then this will end up giving me 11.5. And this is what we call the cash flow. The cash flow. So ladies and gentlemen, before I show you something very important here, we are made to understand that in advanced financial management, even if it's a loss, I have to apply the tax percentage. Mention their method too, because here really we must prove, especially for the doubting Thomases, we must show them for sure this is where the nail is. This is where the nail is. You have to show them. It's always good to doubt. It's always good in this case here to put your teachers into a situation where they will be able to really explain these things even better to you. Ladies and gentlemen, remember here we could have easily come and looked for cash flow directly using our direct method of profit before depreciation and tax into 1 minus taxation plus DT plus the depreciation tax shield. So is there somebody who has been able to write up to here? Is there somebody who has been able to write up to here? Is there somebody who has been able to write up to there? Somebody, I just want to get, great. So in this case here, the profit before depreciation and tax, wamesema ni ngapi oye? Wameniambia ni 10 into 1 minus 0.3 tax. Depreciation itself is 15 times tax rate, which is 0.3, So could you kindly move slowly and then be able to advise Mwalimu whether up to here we are okay. Tell me whether we are okay. Tell me whether we are okay. Is the answer the same? Is the answer the same? Sylvia is saying yes. Sylvia is saying yes. And also Silvanus. I saw Silvanus. I saw Peter Otendo. 11.5. Rhoda Wanjiro. Yes. 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 I mean, I have 60 students. I would want to know the status of everybody. I would want to know the status of everybody. So Stella is saying, yes, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Now, ladies and gentlemen, if, for example, we were to stop this class there, and then after stopping this class right there at this juncture, you get out of your discussion, out of your reading table, out there you meet with your spouse, and your spouse asks you, what have you learned today? Regarding this question, what will you tell your spouse have you learned? Of course, I avoided using the word your son or your daughter, because you know those are people rubbish very fast. Tumwambia unajua wewe toka hapa. Kwanza kama ukuelewa kitu. Toka hapa. Yeah. Like you know, Omondi, you must be having a very good spouse. Omondi amejua straight away, no tax, no depreciation, that is a take home. Yeah, loss is taxed. In FM, even loss, it is taxed. It is taxed, yes. It is taxed. And that is why I always keep on telling you, ensure that you don't marry accountants. If you're an accountant, never get married to an accountant. Marry primary school teachers. So when you tell them no tax, no depreciation, they really respect you. They really respect you. They really respect you. Very good, very good, very good. We are told depreciation is an allowable expense. Ah, great. Now, in advanced tax, you were told depreciation is a non-allowable expense, but here it's being used to calculate PAT. Please advise. Thank you very much, Moses. Now, ladies and gentlemen, and this is something I always keep on telling my students. You know, in tax, we should only allow what we call capital allowance. Capital allowance, that is taxation. But for us, ladies and gentlemen, of course, if I'm given a choice between depreciation and the capital allowance, I'll go for capital allowance. But in the event we are not given capital allowance at all, in finance, actually the thing that we love most is what here is depreciation. In finance, depreciation is allowed. Remember, finance and the tax are quite different. What here? Disciplines. They are quite different disciplines. So in finance, even if you see this depreciation somewhere, know that the taxman allows it. The taxman allows it. The taxman allows it. So can I go to something different? 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 Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, here I am. So I've been able to show you how to get this cash flow. I'll go into an extensive question from the past paper. But before I go to an extensive question in the past paper, I would want to ask you a few questions. If, for example, we have a lady here called Stella. Stella is a nice name. Should be double L, right? So we have Stella Limited. Stella Limited has these cash flows. We have year 1, year 2, year 3. This lady has begun a 3-year project venture. Year number 1, in terms of shillings, awezi Stella no kosa pesa. In jina ya pesa. So year 1, Stella will get 2 million. Year 2, Stella will get 3 million. Year 3, Stella will get 10 million. And then the initial investment was 5 million. And then her cork is 10%. So we are required to get Stella Limited's net present value. COC stands for what? COC stands for what? Somebody, COC. COCI. Stands for cost of capital. You guys are bright. COC stands for cost of capital. Cost of capital. And again, as you're going to see, in financial management, you know, you don't have a relative. You don't have a relative in KASNEB. For AFM, there is nobody who will give you this COCI direct. Most examiners would want you to calculate COCI using, for example, this method of WACC, all right? Some time back, I got a student who was reading this thing in a very unprofessional way. You can imagine a student reading this thing as wakaka. Yeah. So you take weight of equity, cost of equity. I'll be able to show you that. Another examiner may want you to look for this COKI using CAPM. Is there anybody who has ever heard of this model called CAPM? What does it stand for in full? Because section 5 is not the same as section 3. Section 3, we can give you COKI directly. We'll tell you cost of capital is 12%, but section 5 would want to test your prowess of calculating this COK thing. This is quite a serious thing. It's quite a serious thing. Ladies and gentlemen, when you tell me to calculate net present value, there is, thank you very much, Kenneth. When you tell me to calculate net present value, I'm able to see the word present value. I'm able to know that straight away there is some kind of discounting of cash flows. All this, you know, I'm investing at time zero, but now I have cash flows in the future. So the future cash flows must always be discounted. To discount is to reduce amounts. When you go to a supermarket, not a supermarket, but these reja markets here, somebody will tell you, you know what, this shirt is going for 500. You tell them, no, I don't have 500, I only have 200. So they shall be able to give you a discount. So you buy the shirt at a lower price. So when you're discounting, you're doing the opposite of compounding. Mwalimu, why do we have to discount these future amounts to lower amounts equivalent today? It's because of what we call time value of money. Time value of money. In the year 1990, 1988 there, I remember my mother taking 1 shilling and a big basket from home, going to do shopping in some market, and she could come back home with that basket full of goods and with some change. Things change very fast. Right now, if I take 1 shilling like this and give it to my 3-year-old son, this guy throws that thing away. He knows that's not money. Why? Because that 1 shilling has really corroded. Value-wise, 1 shilling right now is nothing. From Nairobi to Kisumu in 1990 or late 80s, Nairobi, Kisumu, it was 7 shillings. A bottle of beer, I was not taking, but I know a bottle of beer around that time was going for 2 shillings. 2 shillings. But also because that currency there was quite strong, getting even that 1 shilling was not easy. Somebody will tell you that they used to be primary school teachers, and for a whole month, they were getting 200 shillings, and that 200 shillings here could give them a cow, right? What are you driving at here? I'm driving at the fact that, ladies and gentlemen, as we get along, these future monies here may look to be quite a lot, but when you bring them to present value, then you're going to get amount to the discounts. We are going to get what we call discounted cash flows. We're going to get lower what here? Lower cash flows. So the question is, then when you tell me that you have to discount these things, I mean, we know that there are 2 models of discounting. We know that there are 2 types of cash flows. Is there somebody who is able to remember those 2 types of cash flows? Is there somebody who is able to remember these 2 types of cash flows? We have 2 types of cash flows. We have 2 types of cash flows. Thank you very much. We have irregular cash flows. And then we have the regular cash flows. Irregular cash flows are like now these ones of Stella, which are dancing, changing, fluctuating. And if they're irregular, somebody told us up there, we shall use what we call PVF to discount them. If they're irregular, we shall use PVF. For those ones who are joining us for the very first time, PVF stands for present value interest factor. They're the ones we shall be using to discount non-uniform cash flows. Non-uniform cash flows. And this PVF, ladies and gentlemen, to get this PVF, the formula is 1 plus R raised to negative what? Negative N. Anytime you see fluctuating amounts and you would want to discount them, ladies and gentlemen, this is what you do. Come and give us a column of PVF, which is 1 plus R raised to negative N. And if you remember, this R is the return. If you remember, R R is the return. It is the cock. The investor who gave you the money is calling it a return. But you see, to the company, it's a cost of capital. It's a cost of capital. 1 plus R. Ladies and gentlemen, remember the cock they have given us here is 10%. So if it is 10%, then here I will come and talk of 1 plus 0.1. Raised to negative n is the year. So raised to negative 1. This will be 1 plus 0.1, 1.1 that is, raised to negative 2. 1 plus 0.1 raised to negative 3. So could you kindly give us these figures? Could you kindly give us these figures using your great calculators? The first one will be 1.1 raised to minus 1. Who is able to give me this figure? Who is able to give me this figure? Sylvia tells me it is 0.9091. Thank you very much. 0.9091. 0.9091. Now, Monday, there is a rounding off issue there. It's supposed to be 0.9091. How about 1.1 raised to minus 2? How about 1.1 raised to minus 2? How about 1.1? 0.8264. 0.8264. How about 1.1 raised to minus 3? 1.1 raised to minus 3. What are we getting? Somebody there? Somebody is telling me it is 0.7513. So you can see the discounting. You can see the discounting there, that as you progress, a shilling, remember we started from a shilling year 1. End of year 1 will be worth 0. It has shed something. End of year 2, it's shedding like that. So whatever you have here, these are our present value interest factors that we shall be using to discount these cash flows. So what you need to do is to come and give us a column here of discounted cash flows. Discounted cash flows. Basically what we shall be abbreviating as present values now. Present values. And for us to get really this, it's quite a simple thing. You take a cash flow times PVIF. You take a cash flow times PVIF. So basically we are taking the cash flows times PVIF to be able to create this column. So could you kindly give me the first figure? Ladies and gentlemen, please talk to me tonight. And please don't forget our smiling face. That's why I always smile throughout myself. So Clinton is telling me that the first one in is 1.8182. Thank you very much. 1.8182. 1.8182. We shall endeavor to put our figures in. We shall endeavor to put our figures in 4 decimal places. In 4 decimal places. So could you kindly help me with the second one? The second one is 3 times 0.8264. 2.4792. 2.4792. Thank you very much. And now we can, the third one, I also know the third one really. The third one is 7.5. The third one is 7.513. Now that these are children of the same mother, all of them discounted to present time, now we can add them. We could not add them when they were futuristic here. Now all of them belong to the present time. So somebody is telling me this is 11.8104. 11.810. So this is the total present value. This is the total present value. This is the total present value. 11.8104. 11.8104. 11.8104. 11.8104. Is there somebody who is able to confirm that figure? Is there somebody who is able to confirm this figure, total present value? Now, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. Yes, but remember what these people wanted is called net present value. What they want is net present value. What they want is net present value. Can somebody tell me, how do I drive this to net present value? What should I do next? 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 I can see, thank you very much. So somebody is telling me, come and subtract the initial outlay. So less the initial outlay. The initial outlay, by the way, all these figures were in terms of millions. All these figures were in terms of millions. So the initial outlay must also be captured in the form of what here? Millions. So it will be 5 alone. So when I subtract like that, whatever that will be born out of this subtraction will be called net present. So is there somebody who is able to give me this net present value? Is there somebody who is able to give me this net present value? It is 6.8104. 6.8104, like that. Ladies and gentlemen, listen and listen to me very well. All of you here would have lost 1 mark. All of you would have lost 1 mark. A mark, a commentary mark. Anytime you get NPV being positive, simply write in brackets that this project is what year is viable. This project is viable. This project is viable. If it's negative, you say the project is not viable. So just writing like that can give you 1 mark, and the 1 mark in advanced financial management can make you see places that you have never seen before, can make you see places that you have never seen before. Don't ask me where, but I've seen this thing taking people to places. I've seen this thing taking people to places. Thank you. Aya, sasa kutoka hapo tuko na Mr. Silvanus Limited here. Tuko na Mr. Silva, hii yake ni ngumu, lakini nafikiri ni hivi, Silvanus, ni ngumu sana jina yake hii. Yake andiko kama ile kawaida, lakini nitajua kuiandika tu. So tuko na Silvanus Limited here. Silvanus Limited is entering into a project whose initial cost is 10 million, right? And then we have the cash flow. The cash flow, ladies and gentlemen, in this case here, the cash flow is 10 million per annum. 10 million per annum for what year? For 5 years. Uongo, here's 10 million. To 73 million per annum for 5 years. Alafu sasa kuna scrap, which is Kenya shillings in million, which is Kenya shillings 5 million at end of year 5. End of year 5. And then we have the coke this time round is 12%. And then we are required to determine Silvanus net present value. You determine Silvanus net present value. You determine Silvanus's net present value. This is interesting. This is interesting, and there are not many people who will be able to get this question correctly. Not so many people shall be able to get this question correctly. Shem tells me that Mwalimu, you know, here we have got 3 types of cash flows. If you're not careful, you'll end up getting a 0. We have, as Shem is telling us, of course, we can see that there is an annuity cash flow. So for annuity cash flow, we shall use PVFA. The other thing that so many students have never known how to identify is this scrap value. Scrap value is a terminal cash flow. When we terminate the project, we shall be getting 5 million. We shall sell the scrap. We get 5 million. So this 5 million is not a repetitive figure. It's a lump sum figure coming to us only once. And the lump sum figures, we normally treat them the way we treat irregular. Lump sum figures, we normally handle them using PVF. And then, of course, the initial cost will fall under the beginning cash flows, which we call the initial outlay. Ladies and gentlemen, then if this student is so serious, we are going to calculate 2 types of discounting factors. The first one will be our usual PVF. PVF for scrap value. For scrap value. So PVF, you are the guys who have just told me to come and use 1 plus R raised to negative n. PVF, you are the guys who have told me to come and use 1 plus R raised to negative n. 1 plus R raised to negative n. PVF, PVF. So then, ladies and gentlemen, this will be 1 plus 1.12 mean. Raised to negative, this scrap value will be coming to us at the end of year 5. So raised to negative 5. Raised to negative 5. Is there somebody who is able to give us an answer? 1.12 raised to negative 5. Please try to push. 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 Please try to push. Try to push. Try to push. wanasema ni 0.5674. 0.5674. And then now we have PVFA for the annuity. PVFA for the annuity. PVFA for the annuity. PVFA for the annuity. You know, it's present value interest factor of an annuity. It's present value interest factor of an annuity. So PVFA for the annuity. So PVFA for the annuity, it's not so many students who will be able to get the formula right. But at least one thing that I'm happy about is that my students here will always be so good in PVFA because they know this. Because they know this, that when you talk of PVFA, they know this very well. When we talk of PVFA, thank you very much. When we talk of PVFA, we must start by saying 1 minus the PV formula. 1 minus the smaller formula. So it will be 1 minus 1 plus R raised to negative n, and then everything to be divided by R. Quite interesting. So when they talk of PVFA, R means beginning. We are starting from scratch in terms of our numbers. It will be 1 minus a shorter formula. And then it's all over. Everything divided by R. Please ensure that you are writing your R very well. It's my handwriting that is bad. If you get somebody trying to imitate my handwriting, you imitate better things. You don't imitate worse. Ladies and gentlemen, now please go ahead and plug in figures and then give me my PVFA here. Go ahead and plug in figures and then you give me my PVFA. My PVFA. This is something that we are supposed to assume as advanced financial management teachers. We are supposed to assume that you did this in section 3, which is a bad assumption. I would rather just take a whole class, show you how to get these things once and for all. Once and for all. So Sylvia ananiambia ni 3.60, 3.60, 3.60, 48, 3.60, 48, 3.60, 48, 3.60, 48. So all of us, are we able to get this figure without fearing mwalimu? All of us, have we been able to get this figure, all of us, without fearing mwalimu? Never fear mwalimu. Why should you fear mwalimu? I don't fear you. Why should you fear me? All of us should only fear God. All of us should only fear God. If you're not getting it, you simply say, mwalimu, I've not gotten it. It's my duty. It's my duty to show you how we calculate this. They're not talking to me. I don't know why. I don't know why they're not talking. They're getting now. Simon, thank you very much. Simon, thank you very much. There is a big comment here. There's a comment like I never saw or something. Can't trace it. I've seen a very big comment somewhere. If you're the one who had asked, please don't take like I ignored. At times this Zoom misbehaves. I would want you to repeat the question. Great. So remember what they've just done. They've taken here 1 minus R. We know R is 0.12. 0.12 raised to negative n. So that's negative 5 divided by R itself, which is 0.12. So what they've done, they've taken here 1 minus 1.12. 1 minus 1.12 raised to minus 5 equals, divided by 0.12, they got this 3.6048. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, look at what I'll do to Silvanus workings. So to get NPV of Silvanus question, I'll come and talk of NPV. So I have this cash flow. The cash flow here is 3 million per annum. But now remember, this cash flow will be multiplied with PVFA. Why? Because it's per annum. They've told us it's per annum. It's an annuity. Plus, we have the scrap. The scrap, I would rather even write this in full for your revision. So scrap is a one-off figure that will multiply with what we call PVF. That will come and multiply with what we call PVF. Ladies and gentlemen, minus the initial outlay, minus the initial outlay, minus the initial outlay. So ladies and gentlemen, this is what we have. We have 3 times PVFA. PVFA, you guys gave me a figure of 3.6048. 3.6048 plus the scrap. Scrap, what do we have here? It's 5 million It's 5 million times PV. You guys gave me a figure of 0.56, 74 minus the initial outlay, Initial outlay is a figure you guys had given me here of 10 million. All figures are in millions. So could you kindly give me this net present value? I've taken the future cash flows, discounted them very nicely, subtracted the initial outlay. Initial outlay, we don't discount initial outlay because we're assuming that the same has been incurred today. So then, ladies and gentlemen, what do we have here at the end of the day? Please help me. Please help me and ask questions. Moses W tells me it is 3.6514. 3.6513, that is okay. It's rounding off error. Thank you very much, Faith. I'm not getting so many students who are giving me these answers. And even the ones who are giving me, they are forgetting a pertinent issue that whenever it's positive, you say in brackets, it's viable, you get 1 mark, and 1 mark can make you see places. 1 mark will make you see places. 1 mark will make you see places. 1 mark will make you see places. Viable. 3.6514. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, from this question, I would want you guys to do me a favor. Please do me a favor. From this question, like you saw in our past papers, I would want somebody to carry out sensitivity analysis as an exercise. Ditto refers sensitivity analysis of scrap value. For engineers, you know, ditto means as above. So the above refers. So they want you to carry out sensitivity analysis of scrap value against Silvanus's model. Sensitivity analysis of scrap value. Is there somebody who is able to remind us? What are we required to do? What are we required to do here, ladies and gentlemen? They want us to carry out sensitivity analysis of the scrap. How I wish somebody would have jumped into the ring and told us, ladies and gentlemen, I may not be remembering the formula, or rather I may not be remembering how to do it, but at least I know the formula. That's how you jump into a ring. But at least I know the formula. So sensitivity analysis. Thank you very much. They're telling me that this sensitivity analysis involves computation of the percentage change. So the percentage change here will be Silvanus's NPV all over the present value of the scrap, because they want scrap, times 100. And fortunately, you've just given me the net present value of Silvanus's model. Is there somebody who can remind me the net present value of Silvanus's model? Net present value of Silvanus's model. Net present value of Silvanus's model. Net present value of Silvanus's model. This gives me 3.6514. How about the present value of scrap? Remember, the scrap figure was 5, but they want it to be present valued. So then I'll have to come and pick it from here. Take the 5 times 0.5674 like that. Whatever I will get, I'll come and multiply this with 100. I love sensitivity analysis. Sensitivity analysis is a serious thing. So students have been able to tell me that the present value of scrap, that they are able to get this. So then the final will be 3.6514 out of 2.837. Whatever we get there times 100%. It will be more than 100%. So Kenneth Oguru tells me that the sensitivity analysis factor is 128.71. Hooray! 128.71%. Sylvanus. Now I've known how to write your name. It is Sylvanus. Thank you very much, Sylvanus. Quite a good name. Thank you very much. 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 Now, ladies and gentlemen, I would want us to tackle something interesting here. Tackle something interesting here. Now here, assuming, of course, Mwalimu doesn't buy into this idea, assuming in this case that Mwalimu wants to marry a second wife, wants to be a real African and marry a second wife. And this lady now here will be called Mary. Oh, we are still writing. Yeah, everything is at the back, Moses. Everything Moses is at the back. We'll go back to the front when we go back to the scenario analysis. Thanks for reminding us. Everything is at the back. It's at the back. Okay, great. So now Moses distracted me from my story. So unfortunately, I forgot even what I wanted to tell you. Now let me go back to this. Yes, it's about Mwalimu Waura here going for a second wife, and this second wife is called Mary. Then I'll be able to tell Mary, you know what, Mary Limited. Now I'll call her, or rather, I want to start a company for her called Mary Limited. And then ensure that, you know, now our initial investment, when she's coming to me, of course, she's not going to pay any price. There is no initial cost. This is the best thing, isn't it? No initial cost on her side. And then I'll come and tell Mary, you know what? Now, because you have decided to become number two, you know, being number two is not an easy thing. I will open an endowment fund and ensure that I give you cash flow of 5 million per annum indefinitely. But N is indefinite. Every year, wherever Mary is, Kazeke kungoja 5 million per annum every year. Don't ask me where I'm getting this money from. Salikubali kwa number 2, 5 million every year. Alafu ataniuliza sasa mwalimu, sababu ni mwalimu nafunza finance, COC, tutumie COC ya ngapi? Nimwambie tutumie a treasury bill rate, which is slightly above what year, or rather which is, let's work with 10%, which is slightly above the T-bill rate. We talk of 10%. Yes, 10%. Now, this great lady, before she makes her decision, she would want to know what is her present value then. If she'll be getting 5 million from me every year, and N is indefinitely, so long as we live, so long as she's alive. So there is no N, there is no end in sight. Clinton, are you doing this paper for the very first time? Clinton, it's not bad to ask. And it's not bad for you to tell me the truth. Clinton, are you doing this paper for the very first time? Or we have done this in our last class? I like what I'm seeing. So, ladies and gentlemen, they are telling me that, you know, this still is a PVIFA thing. It is a PVIFA thing because of what per annum. And if it's a PVIFA thing, then PVIFA will be, as usual, 1 minus our smaller formula all over R. 1 minus our smaller formula all over R. But now you see this time around, we don't have N. N is infinity. So it will be 1 minus 1 plus R raised to negative infinity all over R. Of course, you and I know that anything that is raised to a negative big amount, anything that is raised to a negative infinity, this term here will disappear. Meaning that PVIFA, whenever N is so large, PVIFA will always be obtained by taking 1 over what here, somebody? Taking 1 over R. Taking 1 over R. I love this. I love this. And then now, ladies and gentlemen, listen and listen to me very well. So for me to be able to get then the total present value, for me to be able to take the total present value, listen and listen to me very well. I will take the amount, the annuity amount multiplied by PVIFA, and this time around, remember our N is infinity. coming out very interestingly. So the annuity amount is A. A times the PV FAR, which is what here, somebody? And that is why you saw those two gentlemen talking over A over what here? A over R. 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 All right. So I can see somebody telling me to repeat, which is very nice of you. But before I do that, can you kindly take like a minute to think about this? Take like a minute to think about it. Take like a minute to think about it. So the most important thing is for you to appreciate that Mary will be getting an annuity. So to discount her cash flow, we are using our normal PV FAR. And our normal PV FAR, remember, it's 1 minus 1 plus R raised to the n. But you see now this time round, n is what is infinity, meaning that this term can never be there. It will be decimated, meaning that PV FAR when n is infinity is supposed to be 1 over what? 1 over R. 1 over R. And then we came now here, the total present value, I'll discount this times that, which will end up being A over what here, somebody Maureen, A over R. So meaning that my great lady, is it great or poor lady? My poor lady who will come and take the 5 million divided by R, which is 0.12. So in terms of millions, what is her total present value? So in terms of millions, what is her total, or is it 10% or 12%? Kenneth, is it 10 or 12? I'm being told it's 10. It's 10%. So this is 10%. So then that will give me 50 million. That is the total present value of that poor lady's who? Endowment fund. Endowment fund. I'm not saying that's bad to be second, but you see at the end of the day, if you get married to a teacher as a second wife, then your life is doomed. Even if it's getting married to somebody as a second lady, you have to look at the status of that person. Look at the status of that person. If it's a teacher, tell him, no. You guys can't even feed your families very well. We shall overcome. We shall overcome. We shall overcome. So are we together up to there? Are we together up to there, ladies and gentlemen? Are we together up to there? Are we together? Are we together? Don't take my examples very seriously. These are just jokes to ensure that you guys don't sleep. Those years are very few. But because there is nobody who is asking a question, please allow me to go to something different. Because there is nobody who is asking me a question, please allow Mwalimu to go to something different. And this time round, we are looking at We Shall Overcome. Thank you very much, Peter. Perhaps Peter is a teacher like myself. Thank you very much. So now we have Clinton Limited. Clinton Limited. Clinton Limited yako na project. Initial cost yake ni 5 million pia. Lakini anahitaji working capital. Working capital. Anahitaji working capital ya milioni 2. Alafu tuko na cash flow per annum. Tuko na cash flow per annum ya 6 million. For how many years? 6 years. All right. Tuko na scrap value. Tuko na scrap value. Scrap value ni 7 million. The cork is 10%. So we are required to get net present value. And I would want to give you 2 minutes to try this out. I'm giving you 2 minutes. You try this out. Initial cost is 5 million. Working capital is 2 million. Cash flow per annum is 6 million every year for 6 years. So this is 6 million per annum, remember. 6 million per annum for 6 years. At least now here we have what year? We have N. And then the gentleman is so lucky because we have scrap value of 7 million. And then we have the famous cork of 10%. So we are required to get net present value. Is there anybody who will be able to get this net present value very fast? Very fast. I'm giving you exactly 5 minutes. Don't you think this question is quite an easy one? We skip it. Can we skip this question? Can we skip it? Can we skip this question? Can we skip it? They're not talking to me. They are not talking to me. These students must be very shy. They must be very shy. They must be very shy. It's only Sylvia. Okay, let's do it. Let's do it. I like that way. I like always being directed by my students. When they tell me to skip something, I skip. When they tell me to do it, I do it. So we have three types of cash flows here. We have initial outlay. So initial outlay will have two components. We have the initial cost of the machine. Initial cost of the machine is 5 million. And then, of course, we have to pump in some working capital. Working capital of how much? 2 million. So for us to get started, we need an initial outlay of how much? Of 7. So this is the initial outlay. This is the initial outlay. This is the initial outlay. All right. So we have the terminal cash flow. The terminal cash flow. So terminal cash flow, we have the scrap value. Scrap value is 7 million. Scrap value is 7 million. Remember, not unless you're told otherwise, when the project is terminated, when the project comes to an end, normally the working capital you had put in at the beginning is released. So we have here release of working capital. We have here release of working capital. So release of working capital, what do we have? This working capital doesn't change. At the beginning of the project, we put it in. At the end there, the pipe gives us that working capital. So we're receiving it here. So release of working capital of how much? Of 2 million. So the terminal cash flows there will be 9 million. So these are what we call the TCs. The TC there is 9 million. TC stands for terminal cash flow. And then, of course, now I know the next thing will be the PVFA, right? PVFA and PVF. PVFA and PVF. So PVFA and PVF, these are 6 years. 6 years. These are 6 years. So please give us, first of all, PVF. It's easier for you to start with PVF. PVF, we know the formula is 1 plus R raised to negative N. So PVF here will be 1 plus. Who can remind Mwalimu what was the cost of capital? Who can remind Mwalimu the cost of capital? What was the cost of capital? What was the cost of capital? 10%. So then these will be plus 0.1. Number of years are 6 years, negative 6. So then at the end of the day, what are we talking about here as our PVF? Our PVF will be equal to who? 1.1 raised to minus 6. That will give us what figure? Somebody there, please assist. 0.5645. Thank you very much. On the same breath, I want PVFA. I want PVFA. So my PVFA, I know my PVFA formula will be 1 minus the smaller formula, which is 1 plus R raised to negative N. Everything to be divided by R. So it will be 1 minus 1.1 raised to negative 6. Everything to be divided by 0.1. Can somebody give us this figure? Can somebody give us this figure? Can somebody give us this figure? 1 minus 1.1 raised to minus 6. Rhoda is a very good lady. Rhoda is a very good lady. This lady is very good. 4.355. Thank you very much. 4.355. 4.3553. 4 decimal places, please. And then I'll be able to talk over NPV. So NPV will be our cash flow per annum times PVFA plus our terminal cash flows times PVF minus the initial outlay. So the cash flow per annum, that one is quite an, I forgot my cash flow per annum, but I remember something like 6. Cash flow per annum, is there somebody who can remind us the cash flow per annum? 6, thank you very much, Silvanus. So 6. So 6 times PVFA, you guys have given me something very nice here. PVFA is 4.35. 53. Plus the terminal cash flow. Terminal cash flow, I have a figure of 9 coming to me. So it is 9 times PVIF. PVIF, you gave me a figure of 0.5645 minus the initial outlay. Initial outlay ni ngapi somebody? Initial outlay ni 5. Initial outlay ni 5. So could you kindly give me the final answer? Could you kindly give me the final answer? Could you kindly give me the final answer? Silvanus anasema initial outlay is, it's here. I'm stupid. I need to knock this head. Pretty stupid. Initial outlay is 7. Thank you. Thank you. Initial outlay is 7. Initial outlay is 7. So then what are we getting at the end of the day? What figures are we getting at the end of Atieno? Quite a nice lady. Tells me 24.2123, but she forgot something very important, Atieno, which can make you see places that you've never seen before, Atieno. Imagine. Viable. 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 So the final answer is 24 point something. Viable. Viable. So ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of this particular session. It has been a pleasure to host you around here. I hope you have enjoyed today's session. I hope you have enjoyed today's session. Yeah, great. So for the students whom have welcomed here, who have not joined us, please do not hesitate joining us. Join us as early as today. Our rates are very, very cheap, very affordable. We only charge Kenya shillings 3,500 per subject. 3,500 per subject. So this 3,500 will be able to give you access to our Zoom classes. Our Zoom. So please, you need to call our numbers. Our number is 0719 525,000. Please, once you call this, make your inquiries there and pay us. Don't be cheated. Like now, whatever I've taught you here, even if you were to go to some. No, we have just begun, Caleb. We have just begun. This was our second lesson. This was our second lesson. Yeah, this was our second lesson. So please, the very best, ensure that you are doing what here. So students have come up with different things here. They're saying the initial outlay is supposed to be 5 and not 7. No, Stella, the initial outlay is 7. Why? Because, we are looking at the cash outflow at the beginning. At the beginning, you'll be required to buy the machine itself, whose initial cost is 5. And then you must add in the machine is not coming to drive itself. It needs what we call working capital of how much? 2. So then the initial cash outflow is 7, Stella. Are we in agreement, first of all? Stella here, are we in agreement? It's not even initial, it's called initial outlay now. From there now, this machine works for us, it depreciates, or rather, during selling it, we have a scrap value of how much? 7. But you see, the working capital is normally released at the end. That working capital will be given back to you. So it becomes a cash inflow at the end. So at the end, it will be 7 plus 2, which gives us what there? 9. So I believe, Wairimo, you have also been able to see this.